Now, today's episode is about loneliness. When you do internal cultivation a lot, you get more and more to different kind of barriers inside of yourself, and one of those is loneliness. Now, imagine you move to a different place, you know no one, possibly even when you move to a different country, you might not even speak the language. So, for most people, a sense of loneliness arises, disconnect, it saddens us and it burdens us. And it is like a dark cloud in the mind, and life loses a lot of quality. And because of that, most people never move their butts anywhere because they are so afraid of loneliness and disconnection, and they lose out on a lot of fun. Like, don't let that stop you. That you miss a lot out. Now, anyhow, what you then most of the time do is you try to connect to people and participate in activities to better your situation. But there's still another way, and that is the way of cultivation. And it fixes everything by itself in a strange way. Now, the classical way would be to go out, meet new people, blah, 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 you know the story. But the way of cultivation works differently. And the way of cultivation starts from the point of view and understanding that loneliness absolutely makes no sense. And loneliness makes just absolutely no sense because there's always something around. We believe we need something very specific to connect, but in the first place, there is no real self. The very definition of self implies an environment. And because otherwise you could not separate them. Like if you have no environment, there's no self. You understand it? So you always have both, your body and something around you. It always comes as a package. And you can't just be entirely yourself. That is just not possible. Now people say, but I need this very specific connection. It gives me so much. But then sit down and observe the world a bit. There are many people in this world sitting next to something else, like a flower, a tree, or even a car. They look at it and they treat it like a person. They communicate with it as if it was a person. They look deeply at it, really look at it. Don't just, just sweep over it with the eyes. Really, really immerse your eye view on it. Really enjoy the view of it. Or to listen to the car engine, Many really, really feel it. And out of this really odd connections arise. And you get a sentiment as if you would be next to a person all of a sudden. And by observing your environment, you figure also out then the subtleties of it, especially over time. In nature, you figure, of course, out the seasons, how plants and everything goes. Maybe on your car, you figure out little spots and how the car ages and evolves, which will not always make you happy, but you figure it out. You see maybe how the plant grows, and you can understand it much better, how to make it grow better, and so forth, and so forth. And it is like watching a friend living next to you and changing over time. And by watching the object evolve, it is the very same as if someone tells you a story. So being alone and the belief of disconnect is actually not true. Because if you're really open, really, really open to the environment, you figure out that everything is telling you stories all the time like a person, just not in the way that you desire or expect it. So you are always connected to everything, actually. And that is the final truth. And that is why loneliness makes just absolutely no sense when you really understand it. Now, once you figure out that there's always something, there's always you and there's always the environment. And you always interact with it very, very deeply. Even if you're not aware of it, doesn't matter. At that moment, when you open your eyes and you are more aware of it and you silence your mind and you see and you have the connection. And in that moment, when you come to this beautiful conclusion and understanding means also deeply engraved in your body, that you realize that the entire sense of loneliness is just made up by your mind. That your mind just told you a story a long, long time ago. Like a scientist, for example, stating facts like, this is A, this is B, they are both separate. And this belief in separation caused your problem in the first place. But it is not enough to rationalize it, because you think, and thinking is already creating the disconnect and the problem. So you can't get out of thinking by thinking. The thought itself won't help. You really need to get perception. You need to feel it. You need to get deeply, deeply into it. And this can just be done if you interact deeply with every piece and part of life. You sit on the floor, just feel the floor. Even if you're not doing something, do something. Enjoy it. But also, if you go running and you have an intense workout, enjoy the suffering. This morning, I needed to laugh. I had one of those. I always enjoy hating pain. It's always getting going in the morning. Is always your body aches and everything, but kicking it, and it's just, I don't know. I enjoy hating it. So whatever it is, search for intensity. But that must not mean that it is necessarily intense what you do. You can also just sit in a park and observe the world around you in a more immersed and intense way. And this is also how you get money. Because you need to see opportunity. And opportunity is everywhere around you. And if you really connect to your environment, you see bags of money lying around on the floor, basically. And people just walk past it every day because they don't see it. Because they are not so connected with the world. That does not mean that the money is easy to pick up, obviously, but it is literally everywhere. But to get also back to the little things, maybe for an example, I used to sleep, for example, majorly on the floor, and I had bought a little tree, actually. I woke up every morning under a small tree. Can really recommend. It's awesome. And it's such a great feeling. So you feel this connection also to this tree, just waking up under it. It sounds silly, but it's such a beautiful feeling. So when you come to more this in-depth connection to life around you, that is the moment where you realize there is no separation. And no separation means there is no loneliness. And there is no reason to be sad about it in the very first place. It's super, super silly. You just find out you were entirely stupid the whole time, that you could not figure this out, that you were just pulling your own nose all the time. But there's still a more amazing part about this, actually. Now, the moment you realize that there is no disconnect, you can build a deep connection to anything all the time. And life becomes not only a fucking awesome adventure, but it also becomes really beautiful. Because friends and family are always around you, even if it is just a freaking rock you enjoyed. I always take a walk with a rock for training here, and my dog, obviously. And people might look a bit strange, but it's just fucking awesome. First of all, good for training, but I really enjoy it. It sounds silly, but taking a walk with a rock is already sometimes awesome. So at the same time, where you get this feeling with life, it fixes the problem itself of disconnect to people. So when you meet a person and you believe you are disconnected from them, you are actually disconnected from them. You build through the illusion the disconnect. So when you meet a person, and you know the moment you stand next to them that you are connected to them. It is like a two-way street because it's love. And love always goes both ways. So the moment you shed the barrier and the belief of the barrier, the moment you feel connected to them, they will at the same time too. Because it is you and them are the same thing. And the barrier always goes both ways too. So shedding the illusion is also the cure to disconnect to other people. Because from now on, you just go to them, you just stand next to them, you feel connected, and it just gives a whole different quality on the interaction, even if there seems to be no interaction at all. Now, this is the incredible part, that shedding the illusion of loneliness also fixes loneliness in the traditional sense. But the key difference is, you don't rely on traditional interactions anymore. You are now free. But also now you can build up relationships really fast, of an incredible quality, and it is really enjoyable doing that because you don't rely on any specific interaction anymore to do so. So you can be open to new relationships. For example, you imagine you move to a new place, you leave behind relationships, and many people, for them that is very saddening and bad. I don't want to leave because of that connection I have with this and that person, and you feel this attachment, and this attachment can really hold you back in your life. You don't want to move because you're afraid to lose. And the moment you're always connected, that is the interesting part now, it doesn't matter. Because even if you leave behind in the back, you know in the front there will always be something else which will give you the same. It will come in different shapes and sizes, of course, but it will come. So you are not afraid of leaving behind because you know it is just natural. And in the front, you will have these great connections again, and they will always be there in your life. All the time, 24/7. You will never not have them. You were just stupid in the first place to not have them and realize that you have them already, to be more precise. So now you will find different connections of different flavors in different places, but only if you shed the desire and expectations for very specific connections and are open to the new ones. And instead of trying to force it to stay the same, you need to let life flow through you. There's always water coming from the front and it's always going out from the rear. And by that, you get an awesome journey through life. And that is exactly how it is to walk through life without the fear of gain or loss. But at the same time, they always come as a pair. That is what you need to understand. Gain and loss, they always come as a pair. It's the two opposite sides of the same coin. And if you just play with them and understand that they're fine, you can go through life without the fear of losing. But that is a topic for another time. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and see you soon.